Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Kaba Ilco. Their part number 7075SE10-03-KA2. This is a rim cylinder is what this is. And the 7075 is the replacement for the 7015, with the difference being the 7075 features this threaded cap, whereas its predecessor had a C-clip to hold the tailpiece on. A bit smarter design with the threaded cap because that permits them to have you orient the, not that you couldn't before, but you can certainly put the tailpiece horizontal or vertical. There are times when I like it vertical when I am installing trim with a rim cylinder through a door and then into an exit device. It's a bit harder when that tailpiece is hanging like this versus this way when you're trying to get that tailpiece into your plus sign hub preparation. So I'll always switch it vertical in that sort of scenario. But what you can also do with this is turn it into a lazy action. And lazy action, what that refers to is, and I'm just pulling it up here on a catalog. Okay, lazy action refers to the fact that we can, whenever I turn the key, okay, that tailpiece is directly related to that. So every time I turn it back, it moves back with me. But a lazy action tailpiece, because of that preparation, will permit me to turn the key, turn the tailpiece, bring the key back to vertical without the tailpiece rotating. That's what you would see in a deadbolt function, and that would be what is called a lazy action style. There are deadbolts that basically will take a rim cylinder that, of course, require a lazy action, because if you didn't have lazy action on a tailpiece for a deadbolt, every time you threw the bolt and you went to turn the key out, you would unlock the bolt. So that's why lazy action exists. Okay. 862L is that part number for the lazy action style tailpiece, and 862B, and there is more than one of these options of tailpieces. We'll get to that when we look at the part number. If I were to use a pin removal or a threaded cap removal tool, also known as just a paper clip, I could depress that pin, unthread that cap, the pin will come out, the spring will come out, the tailpiece will come out. At that point, I could then service the cylinder by rekeying it. So what you're going to get in the box is a rim cylinder, 2 keys, and this is the SE. This is an SE, and what that means, it is a Schlage E keyway, a classic obverse keyway. The E, there are 7 of them, I believe. C, E, CE, F, EF, G, FG. I think we're all of them. This is the E keyway. And while it's not the most, or the second most common keyway in the history of civilization, the Schlage C, along with the Quickset, the E is certainly a very common keyway. I would think you could probably get that key blank at a typical big box store. But if you wanted a keyway that was less common, the E would be a go-to. And if you wanted to go even further, you could do like an FG in a classic. There's nothing protected or restricted about them. It's just getting an FG blank in the big box store. It's going to require that you go to a locksmith to get a key cut at the end of the day. So anyway, it's an E keyway. This is a 5-pin. This is a 5-pin key blank. Original look-alike bow. The E is been engraved down there along with its bitting. That's what's called a direct code. 52626. That means if I were to measure 52626, that would be the actual cuts of this key. It's called a direct code. I can directly interpret what that code is. If I had some sort of a matrix that was letters to numbers and it gave an indirect code, I needed then a reference work to pull up what that was. That would be an indirect code. And then there's a blind code that, of course, is, as you might think, not indicated there at all. And you need you certainly need a reference document to know what that code is. Moving through the part number, we have 03. That means it's polished brass. That's a peel-away protective film that's on there, polished brass. This will, of course, come with a cylinder collar. It will, of course, come with your 2 screws and your plate to install it through the door, you'll drill 1.25" diameter hole for this. You're going to put that center line of the cylinder at the proper location. The center line of that tailpiece is not in the center line of the lock body itself, so that will need to be adjusted depending on what you're installing this for. If you're putting on a rim-mounted night latch or rim-mounted surface, rim-mounted deadbolt, you could drill that hole wherever you like, and then your lock body will sit, if it's askew by, that 1/4 inch or whatever it is, that probably doesn't matter to you very much. But be mindful, where that needs to engage your exit device or whatever you're installing it for, the template will call out where to place that so the tailpiece ends up in the right location. Now, a couple of collars or clips will also come with the lazy action, one of them, because you'll need that to hold the threaded cap on in place. Okay, let's switch to the screen view where we can look at the extended description and then some supporting documentation. Now this is the document, or the page in the site that we're looking at least, and some extended description information. Schlage Keyway. The tailpiece will work for doors up to 1.75" thick. Well, they'll work for 1.75" thick doors, but they'll probably work for doors that are 2.5 inch thick. The length of that tailpiece is quite adequate to handle. And as you can see here, it has a range of doors. And you'll cut the tailpiece down to accommodate your application. Horizontal or vertical tailpiece installation. Trim ring, mounting plate, break-off screws, Kaba Ilco look-alike keys, rekeyable to original manufacturer's systems, which means that the cylinder and the plug and the key has all been manufactured to meet and be compliant with the original manufacturer's depth and spacing chart. As we scroll down, we'll see a little table of some tailpieces here. The 863A is a tailpiece that is actually longer than the 863B. You know what? Maybe it's the same, and the 863B is only for the cap removable style. Yeah, okay. So we'll get to the manufacturer's catalog and look at that. It also includes the 863L, which is the lazy action style. The 862 is the typical tailpiece, and if you have the 7015, 7016 series, you'll want either an 862A, 862 or an 862A. The A variant is the longer version of the 862. But when we're dealing with a 7075, a 5-pin, or a 7076, a 6-pin, you'll be dealing with the B. Okay, that's what the broaching of the cylinder looks like, as if when you look down into the cylinder itself, if you're looking at the tip of the key, it will appear, you'll have to reverse that in your mind's eye. There's a link to the manufacturer's page, as we can see here. Okay, let's go ahead and click on that. And then from there, we'll be able to pull up the brass cylinder manual, pull that documented up, and we'll be able to search for the 7075. And we'll find that reference to that part number. Okay, it's a 5-pin cylinder versus a 6-pin cylinder. While it doesn't say here, I'm going to guess that the 7075 is drilled 6-pin, and that on the 76 they will pin it 6-pin. So I would say that the 7075 will take a 6-pin key blank. Grab that, Terry. The 7075 will, the 7076 will take the 6-pin versus a 5-pin. Okay, little phone tag that we're playing here. The rest of the page where you will locate this on shows lots of other part numbers of cylinders. Most of them are mortise type construction, but you do have your current rim cylinders here. You have your key and knob lever deadbolt style cylinders listed here. You have dummy cylinders listed here. You have a turn knob rim cylinder, which you do see occasionally. Okay. So what we're looking at here in the top of the page, a handy way to go about seeing everything that we're looking at here is to dissect the part number. So, 7075 SE is our keyway, and we scroll down, we'll see our Schlage E right here for SE. And of course our cam or tailpiece, this unit has a 10 on it, and that'll be on the second page. That's going to show us that we're dealing with a extra long standard tailpiece for the 7075, and it does include that lazy action. Then we go to the finish codes. This again is the 03 for bright brass, which would also be 605. And then this cylinder here happens to be KA2, which means from the factory when you order them as KA2, they'll be shipped in multiples of 2 keyed alike, which is handy, and we do that often for just inventory purposes. Don't need to charge you to rekey 2 cylinders when you want them keyed alike when we stock them as KA2. So that's a handy way to go about doing that. Another interesting thing about the SE is the 1145E. Well, that's their part number for the key blank that would work with that cylinder. So if you wanted to order more of those key blanks, you'd order the 1145E. And speaking of that key blank, if we go to back to the manufacturer's page, we click on the key blank catalog here, and we allow that document to open up for us. Do a find function on our keyboard for 1145E. We're certainly going to find where that key blank occurs. And here it is. It's in section 2. All of the typical sort of door hardware or builder's hardware cylinders are in section 2, at least of this current catalog. And here's our 1145E. It's their easy number SC8. You'll see that on Kaba original blanks, SC8. It's their quick code, so to speak. This entire page alludes to the multiplex structure or nature of the classic obverse Schlage the classic obverse Schlage keyways. C, C, E, 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 F, 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 G, and G. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 7 is what it is. Yeah, there's 7 here. Down here, what it refers to are multi-section key blanks, not cylinders. These are all available as cylinders up here. But down here, these would be key blanks. So the point is if you had an installation that had C and E, you could just run around with an 1145H, and that key blank will pass C, CE, or E. I wouldn't recommend that you do that unless you had to, because the broaching, I should say the milling on the key blank would be done in such a way that it will permit it to pass those 3 different broachings. In translation in plain English, it's a thinner key blank. There's also an all-section blank, the L blank, which will work all of the 7 cylinders. That's a stainless blank because it's been milled so thoroughly that it's quite thin at that point. This is a great resource, the key blank catalog. It's 500 pages of cross-reference documents. If I were to search further on for the 1145E, I'll be able to pull up references to that key blank and a reference chart to other manufacturers' material. So if you've got an 1145E by Kaba Ilco, you can find the Curtis part number, the Silka part number, the Jet part number, etc. Dexter, Dominion, whoever would have manufactured that. This cross-reference here is near the back of the catalog, which is a really handy resource. So back to the manufacturer's page, a very helpful document because you're going to have the brass cylinder manual, you'll have the key blank catalog, other encyclopedic documents, such as information on key machines that Kaba Ilco does. For fun, there's a archival catalog here from 1950. Here's another one from 1972. We grow that library as we come into possession of old catalogs. So a really neat sort of concept that we have going here with the manufacturer's page. Let's finish up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, I'm quite partial when it comes to Kaba Ilco products because a number of reasons. a very high quality product. This is all solid brass. The housing is solid brass. The plug is solid brass. That's an architectural material which will afford a very nice tight tolerance when it comes to machining all of these parts. Okay, what that means is you'll get nice smooth operation out of a solid brass cylinder. Okay, and high quality cylinders are generally made out of solid brass. High security cylinders can be made out of other materials, but brass is fairly common. Okay, I'm also an unabashed fan of Kaba Ilco because of that confluence of quality and value. Very inexpensive compared, in my opinion, comparatively when you think about the quality of the finished product. Quite frankly, I would choose to use Kaba Ilco in every instance that I can. I wouldn't choose to use a more expensive cylinder when there was no measurable advantage in doing so. I would look for other cylinders when I could not obtain a keyway that I needed, but, you know, at 24 different keyways easily, you know, you will certainly hit the most common of keyways because that's what they're manufacturing, obviously. Also partial because there's a technical support rep in the cylinder department there who has been incredibly helpful to me over the years, answering questions, and to him I say thank you. If you have any questions on the Kaba Ilco 7075 SE with a 10 tailpiece and an 03 finish, or any other Kaba Ilco product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.